Hello, citizens of the verse. I'd like to talk with you about the next concept sale, which is going to be announced on the 27th of October and will run parallel with the upcoming CitizenCon convention. This ship, up till now, has only been referred to simply as the Game Changer, and I'd like to share with you 3 of the most plausible ideas so far as to what this might end up being. First, I'd like to define for you just what I consider to be a game changer. It would have to be something that completely changes the scope of a game and alters how you play it in a considerable way, almost to the point where it becomes a completely different game because of it. An example of this would be after you first construct a sea moth in Subnautica. It is the definable thing that starts shifting the focus of the game from survival to exploration. It opens up the entire map to explore in terms of length if not depth. It provides protection against most of the biome's aggressors and can act as a portable diving bell that you can use to replenish your air supply no matter how far underwater you are, and it completely changes how you play the game from the moment after its construction. So with that in mind, it makes me wonder what could change the scope of gameplay within the Star Citizen universe. So I'm not looking for something that augments pre-existing gameplay elements or even adds in things that are already expected to be coming in future updates. I'm looking for things that actually changes the game as we know it, both in scope and depth, and possibly aims things into an entirely new direction. With that said, I'm going to go over 3 ideas that are very real contenders for this title and why I feel that they have the best chance at fitting into this role. The first idea revises the notion of this ship being a pocket carrier. I was quick to dismiss this at first, but my interest was rekindled by a comment that simply said, "It's the Pegasus." I still think there's nothing game-changing about a pocket carrier, something that sacrifices nearly everything to have an internal hangar space which is capable of holding a few standard-sized fighter craft. The Pegasus isn't just a pocket carrier. It can hold up to 30 other ships within it. Being able to carry that much tonnage in air and ground support to any location is like being able to bring your entire fleet of ships, your friend's entire fleet of ships, and his friend's entire fleet of ships to anywhere you want and still have room to spare. And with regards to CIG stating that this concept sale would end up being related to a civilian occupation, that might have been a little bit of a misdirect, while still being technically true, since this vessel will be offered as a civilian version of the Pegasus carrier class, much like they did for the Javelin and the Idris when they were put up for sale and offered to the civilian market at near military specs. Another thing is that this ship was grayboxed out almost 3 years ago and nothing's been heard about it since, making it a complete surprise if it was unveiled during this year's CitizenCon. They would have had plenty of time to bring it to the concept ready phase, and this vessel would definitely be epic enough to be worthy of being presented at such an event. Jaws would drop, and bank accounts would be emptied. I kinda hope this isn't the game changer, because I'd be so tempted to buy it with money I don't have, and I doubt the bank would accept, "I want to buy a giant virtual ship" as a reason to give me a loan. Plus they've already said no once. The second idea, and bear with me on this one, is the Saber Raven. I bring this up because it's been on the roster of ships to be released for quite some time now, but was repeatedly bumped in favor of one ground vehicle after another. Even recently it was shown again during the Breaking Up with a Saber episode of Bug Smashers. If you freeze frame it and look at the code, you can see that it's already been logged into the XML file, complete with scripting elements attached to it. So how would this be a game changer? For some time now there's been whispers that this version is going to end up being a Super Saber. Now think about that for a second. If the Hurricane is Anvil's answer to the Heavy Fighter, then the possibility exists that the Raven could be Aegis' attempt to throw in their gloves in the heavy fighting ring, by taking what's already their best dogfighter and augmenting it into a heavy fighter. If they improved upon this already established model, they could create something that exists on the same scale as an F-8 Lightning. But there is one more aspect to the Saber Raven that most people haven't considered, and I feel that this is even more likely of a possibility than the Super Saber theory. This idea revolves around the interdiction model of gameplay. Now, I already know that developers have stated that the active interdiction is going to be a function of the weapons, not some inherent power found within a ship. Don't believe me? We already have a number of interdiction ships that have no interdicting powers, but they all have the ability to move incredibly fast in a straight line, in order to close the gap between them and their prey quickly enough, so that they can get within range and use their disabling weapons to keep the target from escaping. What they currently don't have is access to the weapons that are going to allow them to interdict other ships. So this version may be a pirate edition of the Saber, reskinned and armed with the first generation of interdiction guns. The Saber has been repeatedly referred to as a ninja, and through stealth they could get up close to a ship and disable its jump engines with one clean hit of an interdiction style weapon, then call in the rest of its forces to jump in on its location and commence the raid. We know that pirating is going to be a supported function of 3.0, and this could be the first step in introducing an integral part of their mechanics into the game, and is arguably one of the best ships to use to do it with. It would not only give us one last chance to pick up a saber with LTI, but would also be a great way to introduce interdiction as a new gameplay mechanic, and most definitely would be a game changer in every aspect of the term. They could even combine these two previous ideas and make a Super Saber Pirate Edition of the ship that comes stocked with interdiction capable weapons. So far, my money is on the game changer being the Pirate Edition of the Saber. The last idea is the result of pure theory crafting, so there's a little chance of it or anything like it actually being offered as a new concept ship. But it does present an idea that's the closest to the theme of this year's CitizenCon, which is exploring new worlds, and it does provide another facet to the act of exploring. This concept was sparked after I recently went back and started playing a number of space sims like Elite Dangerous, EVE Online, Space Engineers, and Empyrean. I noticed that most of them seem to have a key gameplay mechanic that Star Citizen currently lacks, one that can and at some point should be exploited. This idea tackles that issue as well as another one that's associated with the addition of planetside landings. The newly acquired ability to land on planets has introduced the need for a plethora of new flora to be created, as well as all kinds of exciting new fauna for players to encounter. But the issue is, what do you do with them? How do you make new creatures more than just eye candy, or end up being just another annoyance that has to be contended with? How do you make the rocks and the terrain and the various new species of plants more than just window dressing? This ship provides an answer to all of that. What I'm proposing is a new kind of science vessel that's designed to be large in scale like the Reclaimer, while being more mobile than a ship like the Endeavour is. This vessel would come with a large-scale fabricator that can produce any number of consumables that you can use privately or be put up for sale. The raw material you use to construct them wouldn't come from scrap or ore that you've mined, but from the flora and fauna found in the surrounding environment. Another element to this ship would be that it would start out being able to create a number of common consumables like health packs and repair kits, but to get to the ability to construct more exotic items, you'd have to first find the constructor template for them. They would be found scattered throughout the verse, scrounged from wreckages, given as rewards for specific missions, sold from other players, or purchased from large conglomerates like Microtech. It would also give you a reason to frequent the far corners of the verse's dingiest bazaars, Banu marketplaces, and seedy black markets of Levski and Grimhex in search of new and exotic, perhaps even contraband templates for you to add to your fabricator. This mechanic would also incentivize you to visit new and exotic locations in search of the ingredients you're going to need to create these items. The various types of flora and fauna you'll be seeking out will not be harvested in the traditional sense, but through the use of specialized equipment that you could use to extract enzymes from them. This process wouldn't kill them, and after which they wouldn't be removed from the playing world, but would eventually become tapped out, preventing any future extraction attempts. More advanced consumables that your fabricator can construct would include cures for rare diseases, immunity boosters to prevent you from getting ill, which is a possible future gameplay mechanic that's been hinted about by the devs, inhibitors that allow you to better resist blacking out during high-speed maneuvers, increases to your blood oxygen level allowing you to sprint longer, are new forms of biofuel that could be far more efficient than using quantum fuel. The possibilities for the kinds of consumables that you can construct would have no bounds to it. You could also create a mad science vessel that could be used for creating all kinds of nefarious and contraband items. If you teamed up with a Banu merchantman, you could become your own Breaking Bad of the stars, running your own mobile black market or drug lab. You could even be given specific missions that call upon your ship's unique abilities. For instance, finding and synthesizing a cure for a specific disease that's ravaging a certain world. Quarantine laws would prevent them from sending out people themselves, forcing them to seek out aid from others like yourself who have the ability to do this work for them. Of course, at a sizable cost. Going back to the dark side, you could be asked to fabricate a certain amount of biofuel for an org so their entire fleet of ships could reach an enemy faction's base as a single group. There could be a certain time limit to contend with if you're going to meet the attack's deadline. Would they be willing to pay through the nose in order to make this happen? Long amounts of your time would be spent going off exploring and looking for the raw materials out along the known universe's rim. When you return back to civilized space, you'd spend your time looking for people who need the items that you're capable of producing, or acquiring the ability to produce more types of items. This idea creates a new avenue for exploration by giving it more purpose beyond just hunting down wrecks. Attaches more utility and function to the various forms of plant and animal life that you're going to be encountering, and establishes an entirely new career path complete with its own gameplay mechanics. It also introduces a base level of crafting without going overboard and keeps it from becoming a grind. And since you're going to be crafting consumables for private use or sale, there's always going to be a need for more of them. Thank you for tuning in and sticking with me through this exercise in theory crafting. I hope that you enjoyed the video and you'll come back and visit the channel again for more Star Citizen content.